there is a lever that almost every leader I've worked with in the last 25 years, with maybe 5% exception, miss the most powerful lever for winning their employees and their customers. And I want to tell you a personal story of when I first discovered the power of purpose to transform how we do our jobs. I was 24 years old and I was in graduate school in Chicago at the University of Chicago. And I had to work to put myself through school, so I got a job in a drugstore working in a postal substation, like a Shoppers Drug Market, working as a postal clerk in one of the poorest neighborhoods in America on the south side of Chicago. And after 3 weeks of working 23 hours a week in this job, I have to tell you, I hated the job. Because to me, the job, within a week, I had mastered the job. I spent my entire day with a line that never ended for the entire shift, selling stamps and weighing packages and writing money orders and doing the things that you do when you're a postal clerk. I didn't see any meaning in the job, and I didn't sense that my boss saw much meaning in it either. And by a month into the job, I was just literally going through the motions, as millions of people do when they go through their jobs. And then for the rest of my life, I will remember the moment my job changed. It was a rainy morning in Chicago. I know it was raining because the third customer in line that morning was a woman well into her 80s who was wearing a brimmed hat, and it was still raining, dripping on her shoulders as she asked me to write a money order for her. Now, in every job, there's something that really aggravates you, some task you hate the most, and in the post office, writing money orders was that task, because it was one of those old, credit card machines, and every time you did one, about every 3 or 4 would rip, so as you would try and write the money orders for people, the line would get longer and longer. And as I'm doing her money order, I just casually asked her, "And how are you this morning?" And she said, "Well, to be honest, I'm not doing very well. My daughter is in the hospital about a mile from here, and she has cancer, and she's dying. And the doctors told me that she may die any day. She could die in the next hour." And she said, "For God's sakes, I should be there." She said, "But if I don't pay my rent by 5 o'clock today, they're going to evict me. And those lousy people who run my building will not let you pay in cash. And I have no one else in the world to get this money order for me but me." She said, "But I should be there. For God's sakes, my daughter is dying." Now, I have to tell you, I don't really remember much of what I said to her. I do remember I was kind. I do remember I was gentle. I do remember for the first time in that month in the post office, it occurred to me there might be some meaning in my job. But what I will remember for the rest of my life is at the end of our conversation, she walked to the door of the drugstore and she turned around, and I could see her walking back down the aisle, coming back, and walked behind the counter and interrupted the customer who was already doing business with me. And she took her shaking, feeble hand and put it on my forearm, and she stared me in the eyes and she said, "Son, I just want to thank you. Thank you for being so kind. You do know, don't you? You do know, don't you? You made my day." And in that moment, my job was transformed. For the rest of that year, for 23 hours a week, I realized that I had a chance in that post office to make a difference in the lives of those people in this one of the poorest neighborhoods in North America who had incredibly difficult lives. And if I could just show up in a different way, maybe in that job I could make a difference. You may wonder, does this really matter? Let me tell you about some fascinating research by Amy Wiercinski at Yale University, who has studied more than anybody else in the world how people see their jobs and how it impacts us. And it turns out that almost every one of us in this room and every person who works for us sees their jobs in one of 3 ways. It's either a job and that's all it is. I'm doing it to trade for what I get for it. If I won the lottery tomorrow, I'd be gone. I'm just doing this to get what I'm getting for it, the money and the benefits. The second is some people see their job, the role they're in, as a career, which is I'm here to learn, I'm here to grow, I'm here to kind of build my skill for myself so that I can, grow my career and do something else. And then some people see their job as a calling, from the Latin word vocatio, and what it means is that they see their job as a deep way they are being of service to something that they care about, so that the job is actually a part of their core identity. And it turns out what's really fascinating is it doesn't matter what your job is, it's not a very good predictor of how you see your job. There are surgeons who see their job as just a job, and there are janitors who see their job as a calling. But here's where it gets really interesting. It turns out if you see your job as a calling, you are more engaged, provide better customer service, do more discretionary hours without pay, you're less likely to call in sick, you're happier, and you're more committed to your organization than whether you see your job in either of those other two ways.